We can go and get drunk tonight. Hey guys! Welcome to a brand new episode of Creative Guzzle. Today I want to tell you a little story about how I got into screenwriting. But before I get into that, I would like to commemorate the season finale of Walking Dead, and what a season finale it was, by making a drink inspired by The Walking Dead called Walker's Blood. Now, this recipe calls for bourbon and blackberry brandy, but I couldn't find any blackberry brandy, but I did find black cherry bourbon. So I'm going to use this, and then I got regular brandy. We're improvising a little bit here. We'll see how this goes. So it's 1 ounce of the bourbon. Sure, that's an ounce. We need another ounce of the brandy. I pretty much just bought the cheapest brandy that I could find. Need a splash of grenadine. Is that a splash? I don't know. And then finally, just some good old Coca-Cola to fill it up. Maybe a little more grenadine. It's a very interesting brown-red color. Cheers. That's pretty good. I wonder how it would taste with the correct ingredients. So like I said, today I'm going to be talking about how I got into screenwriting, and that starts with the origin of my very first IP, Legend of the Orbs. It started way back in 2003 when the third installment of the Lord of the Rings movies came out, The Return of the King. And I remember sitting there in the theater, and there was some point in the movie, and I don't remember which point it was, but I just suddenly had the thought occur to me, I want to do this. I want to write a epic fantasy saga and get it made into a movie series and star in the movie series. I've always been a bit of an overachiever. So that night I went home, grabbed a notebook, and started writing out ideas for a plot that could possibly expand into a full fantasy series. Now, roughly around that same time, I had just recently co-founded a X-Men RPG on a little art community website called Elftown. Thumbs up if you remember Elftown. In that RPG, I had a couple of really cool characters, or at least characters that I thought were really cool, that I took and made them into the main cast of my epic fantasy series. And that's how Legend of the Orbs was born. See this right here, this little piece of paper with really old gel pen writing on it. This was the first sheet of notes that I ever took for Legend of the Orbs. I keep this around to remind me where the story started and how far it's come since then. Now, starting out, I knew virtually nothing about writing, so I looked up a lot of articles online, I read some books, did a lot of research, I did a lot of note-taking. I took notes for like 4 or 5 years before I actually wrote anything. It wasn't until freshman year in college, freshman summer, when I finally sat down with my laptop and started writing, and I wrote about 80,000 words. The only problem was that every time somebody read a chapter, including my mother, they would usually comment with, "It kind of reads like a screenplay." After a while, I finally decided that since the end game was to make movies anyway, why not cut out the middleman and write them as screenplays? My college offered a screenwriting course, so I signed up for it. Now, I would just like to take a moment here and point out that I went to an art school, and art students tend to be rather snobbish towards things that they consider to be mainstream or blockbustery. The fact that I was writing a fantasy story, a lot of people turned up their nose to it. I'm sorry, that's what I like, dude. Stop being a judgmental twat. The way the screenwriting class was designed was we had to present an outline of the full movie, and then we had the rest of the semester to write 40 pages, or roughly 1/3 of the final script. About a week before it was time for me to present my script, I had written 80 pages, and I turned it into my teacher for him to read ahead of time and give me some feedback. That's when I got one of the biggest compliments ever. He handed me back the script and he said, You know, I've been teaching this class for 15 years, and every semester I get a student who writes a fantasy story. Yours is one of the best ones I've read. On the inside I was going, and that's how I fell in love with screenwriting. It wasn't just the compliment, obviously, it was also the freedom that screenwriting gave me. Like, I'm a very visual person, I'm an artist, I think visually, and the screenwriting format feels really much more natural to me than writing a novel. And that same semester was when a few of my other IPs came to be. They just kind of happened during brainstorming sessions with one of my friends, but also being inspired by just loving screenwriting so much. That's where I came up with Power Up, Nethergate, a sci-fi samurai story that doesn't have a title yet because I haven't really worked on it much. And even since then, I've come up with many more IPs. I came up with Nebula, which was inspired by Invasion Battle for Earth mashup series on YouTube, Transference, The End, Beyond the Fog, Rift Raiders, The King's Flag, The Royal Force, and more. And through it all, I'm still working on Legend of the Orbs because that's my baby project. I put way too much time and love into that story to just let it die. At some point in the future, I'll tell you about all these IPs. I just wanted to share with you kind of how I found my passion for screenwriting. Until next time, stay frosty.